Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 220 based on novel. So let's start. Standing on the roof, Xiao Yan casually glanced at the countless strange tentacles still covering most of the hull, and slowly raised a cold smile at the corners of his mouth. While others were gazing, Xiao Yang's toes lightly touched the eaves, and his body suddenly burst into the air. However, in the blink of an eye, he had appeared at the top of the ship. From here, you can clearly see the tentacles that are spreading rapidly. At the same time, you can also see the huge body of the two giant animals outside the tentacles. The strength of the beasts in the middle of the 9-star fight is not weak. With a slight sigh, Xiao Yang rushed out of the array from a place with dense tentacles in full view of the public. Just listen to the bang. A large number of tentacles turn into debris and fall down. Xiao Yang's body has appeared outside the array, facing the two thorny sea lions. On the deck, people looked at Xiao Yang, who had easily destroyed the tentacles of the thorny sea lion, and their eyes could not help showing a look of shock. At the same time, the bottom of their hearts, which were almost desperate, was also because of Xiao Yang, and a glimmer of hope rose again. Bang! At this time, the two 9-star fighting emperors launched the attack first. The surging fighting spirit condensed into two powerful fighting skills, pounded on those tentacles and broke a large number of tentacles. With the reappearance of this scene, the people on the surrounding decks were immediately encouraged, got up one after another, guided by the rising hope in their hearts, scarlet eyes, tried their best to show their cards, and repeated bombing made these people's hearts gather together invisibly. The power from the bottom of their hearts made them quickly become tacit understanding, and the attack became no longer chaotic. Instead, they formed a special tacit understanding. For a moment, they succeeded in pushing back the remaining tentacles, which also made the hearts of these people more fiery. Like a spark of hope, at the moment, it is burning in this tentacle. The fire of hope is rising higher and higher. With the trend of starting a prairie fire, it rises with the bottom of the hearts of these people. This is called, a single spark can start a prairie fire. The person who lit this spark was Xiao Yang, who was chased by two giant beasts outside the array at the moment. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The sound of breaking the air rang through Xiao Yang's ears like raindrops. Thick tentacles flew past Xiao Yang's front and back. They should have touched the tentacles on the latter's body, but Xiao Yang easily hid them at the most critical moment. As for those who could not hide, they were also easily destroyed by Xiao Yang. Countless tentacles shuttled around Xiao Yang's body, but his body was as light and agile as a rabbit shuttling between thorns. Nevertheless, surrounded by countless tentacles, Xiao Yang was soon covered by a thick layer of tentacles. When the countless tentacles tightened each other, Xiao Yang's body was bound heavily without accident. Under the blessing of fighting spirit, countless tentacles already have good toughness. Coupled with being bound in this form, even the 9-star fighting emperor can't break free in a short time. At the moment, the two giants also seized the opportunity and stretched out more tentacles. Under the cover of fighting spirit, they penetrated the void with incomparably fierce momentum and stabbed Xiao Yang, who was bound at the moment. In this situation, once the tentacles penetrate the body, even if they are immortal, they will inevitably leave no small trauma. For this scene, all the people on the deck who had expelled most of their tentacles naturally came into their eyes. Immediately, everyone's hearts were involuntarily tied together. Now Xiao Yang can be said to be their spiritual pillar. Once the latter was defeated in this way, these people who managed to cheer up again, I'm afraid they will collapse to the ground again in the blink of an eye. If they are decadent again this time, they will never stand up again. Buzzing, buzzing. But just after those tentacles bound Xiao Yang firmly, in a few short breaths, people clearly saw that dazzling golden lights were shooting out from the depths of the tentacles. Then, cracks spread rapidly from the countless tentacles. They didn't wait for more tentacles to shoot at Xiao Yang and bind a large group of tentacles of Xiao Yang. It burst suddenly in a dull bang. Dang dang. Then, the fierce collision sound resounded again. Those tentacles covered by fighting spirit collided with Xiao Yang's body, and the golden light-shrouded body did not move. On the contrary, those tentacles collided with the golden light suddenly burst in an instant. The collision between the two was as fragile as hitting an egg with a stone. For several minutes, Xiao Yang's body was still motionless, and even the golden light on the conjoined watch did not disperse a bit. This is the hegemony of the golden elephant. Wow! Seeing this scene, the people on the ship immediately made an uproar. At the same time, they also lit a hot fire of hope in their eyes, and their hands became more fierce. Drink! At a certain moment, Xiao Yang in the sky suddenly gave out a violent drink. The invisible sound waves actually seemed to contain a strong force. Where they passed, the tentacles that hit the latter again were broken inch by inch. I'm still in a hurry, so I won't play with you. A faint word fell from his mouth, Xiao Yang's big sleeve waved, and the forest white flame suddenly turned into a turbulent flame wave, sweeping away towards the tentacles wrapped around the ship. Then, the people on the ship clearly saw that all tentacles were sealed by strange ice wherever the flame passed. Then, in the shocked eyes of these people, they broke into countless pieces of ice and fell into the ocean. However, in a short time, those tentacles wrapped around the ship the moment before have been scattered in the sea. At the same time, the ship has restored its original control. Is that strange fire? The flame that can freeze things. If it's good, it should be the bone spirit cold fire that ranks 11th in the list of different fires. Who on earth is he? He can be favored by different fire. Suddenly, all the people who recognized the flame on the ship couldn't help but be curious about Xiao Yang. Of course, more than this, it was the latter who shot in time and showed their gratitude for saving their lives. At the same time, Xiao Yang's body was like a ghost and came to the head of a thorny sea lion. When the latter saw Xiao Yang coming in front of him, he also opened a big mouth and tore at Xiao Yang. At the same time, on the sky behind him, another thorny sea lion also shot countless tentacles at Xiao Yang like arrows in the sky. For the attack behind him, Xiao Yang's backhand was a blowout, and the flame-shrouded palm print rose to meet the storm. It was easy to swallow the countless tentacles. Then his body suddenly rushed down, avoided the attack of the thorny sea lion below, and fell on the top of the latter's head. His hands clenched into fists, and his green tendons burst. The terrible power immediately condensed in the palm. Then, is merciless all kinds of falling. Bang! A punch fell and immediately left a huge pit on the beast's head. Flesh and blood were separated and white bones were exposed. When the sole of the foot stepped down, it was a giant beast exposed to the sea. The huge body sank down uncontrollably. Half of the body fell directly into the sea. The spacious back was stepped out of a huge footprint. Before waiting for the giant beast to struggle again, Xiao Yang then continued to fight. His right hand spread out, and the fighting spirit in the palm condensed. Soon, it turned into a black light spot the size of a thumb. Heaven-created palm! With a low cry in his heart, Xiao Yang's right palm fell on the top of the thorny sea lion. The terrible power of swallowing spread over the time. In a short moment, it was completely submerged in the roar of the giant beast under him. Together with the surrounding sea area, it was swallowed up by the great fortune palm. The sea water poured back, and the ship that had just recovered its stability shook violently and uncontrollably. The people on the ship were shocked. When they recovered, the thorny sea lion that was originally at the tail of the ship had completely disappeared. That terrible fighting skill just now. For a moment, all the people on board were shocked. Together with the other thorn sea lion, they also felt the horror of this human being. Their huge body quickly turned around and dived, and the sea water churned. However, in the blink of an eye, half of their body had disappeared into the sea. Hey, do you want to run? It's very fast. It's worthy of being the top warcraft in the ocean. With a whisper of surprise, Xiao Yang wanted to turn around and get on the ship, but then he raised his eyebrows. The thorny sea lion traveled particularly fast in the ocean, but I don't know if it can be tamed and used to drive the ship. Wouldn't their speed to reach the destination be much shorter? With this in mind, Xiao Yang immediately grinned and saw the giant beast whose back had just disappeared into the sea. His body suddenly twinkled. In the blink of an eye, he rushed into the sea in the surprised eyes of everyone on the ship. This guy, does he still want to kill the beast? That thing did a lot of trouble to us just now. It's understandable that he would have this idea. Everyone frowned, and the voice of discussion sounded. At the same time, their heart, which had been tense for a day, finally relaxed slowly. However, just after a short moment, the sea just calmed down, suddenly rolled violently again. Then, the huge body of the thorn sea lion gushed out from under the sea again. The faces of the people on the ship who had not yet breathed changed again. All of them mobilized the little fighting spirit left in their bodies and looked warily at the giant beast appearing again in front of them. However, at a certain moment, the people with sharp eyes suddenly found that there was a figure in black robe standing on the top of the thorn sea lion. The public followed his eyes. Sure enough, the figure was undoubtedly Xiao Yan. As for the thorn sea lion at the moment, there was no resistance at its feet. Although its huge body still brought people unlimited visual impact, the terrible smell of bloodthirsty like before had dissipated. The people on the ship could not help but think that the latter at this time was like a clever lion. What's going on? Just when everyone was surprised, Xiao Yan stamped his feet lightly, and the giant beast at his feet immediately obediently sent it to the edge of the ship. The latter immediately boarded the ship in the watchful eyes of everyone on the ship, even with a smile. Ladies and gentlemen, this group will pull the boat for us for the next voyage. I believe it will reduce the time we reach our destination by more than half. As soon as he said this, the people on board were shocked. They looked at the giant beast in front of them with unbelievable eyes. They couldn't believe that the giant beast that wanted to drag them into the seabed to annihilate a moment ago would become their labor at this moment. Sir, it won't have any problem. The 2 9-star fighting emperors helped each other and came forward. They bowed their hands respectfully to Xiao Yan. Then, they asked carefully. This is what everyone was worried about. After all, what the thorn sea lion is best at is dragging its prey into the depths of the sea. If Xiao Yan's actions backfire and are used by the thorn sea lion in turn, but drag their ship into the sea, the result will be unbearable for everyone on board. For this, Xiao Yan had expected it long ago. Please rest assured that there will be no problem. With a smile, Xiao Yan glanced at everyone present, and his face was full of a confident smile. Seeing the latter, most of the people on board nodded heavily after a little hesitation. After all, the strength shown by Xiao Yan has proved everything for him. His persuasion is undoubtedly stronger than the 2 9-star fighting emperors who control the ship. Moreover, many people in the crowd are eager to try. After all, they have never seen such a thing as letting Warcraft pull the boat in the sea. Now they have the opportunity to feel it, how can they not be excited? And those who still have concerns, after a struggle, choose to nod for sure. Seeing the people nodding, Xiao Yan smiled with satisfaction and turned to give orders to the giant beast behind him. The latter also immediately twisted his body skillfully and came to the front of the ship. He used his countless tentacles to hold the ship's hull. Immediately, in the surprised eyes of everyone on the ship, sure enough, the ship was dragged by the thorn sea lion at a faster speed, towards the depths of the North Sea. Panshi Island is the largest island in the North Sea, which is close to the northern region. It is the only place for all practitioners traveling to and from the North Sea. At the same time, it is also a branch of Longzifang, which is the destination of Xiao Yan and others. Panshi Island is named after a big snake with a similar shape to the island. There is another saying that there are countless jiao snakes on the upper layer of Panshi Island, which just got its name. However, this does not affect the reputation of Panshi Island in the North Sea. The whole island is round, like a pagoda. Perhaps because of its name, even all the buildings on the island are surrounded by one ring, like an entrenched giant snake. Of course, more reasons are naturally due to its terrain. On the other hand, the ship was towed by the thorn sea lion, and the speed was naturally several times faster. It would have taken more than 2 months. Under the leadership of the thorn sea lion, in only 1 month, the people on the ship had seen the huge island on the sea level, which made the people on the ship very happy. He was also surprised at the speed of the thorn sea lion. In addition, all the people on the ship, including the 2 9-star fighting emperors, admire Xiao Yan from the bottom of their hearts. Who would have thought that a seemingly unattractive young man had such a strong strength? 2 thorny sea lions, each of which was stronger than that in the middle of the 9-star duty. However, even so, in the hands of the former, they all failed in just a moment. Killing a thorn sea lion easily is an amazing means to make the other one listen to its orders. Everyone on board knows how they could come here in such a short time if they were not led by the thorn sea lion. Moreover, because of the thorny sea lions along the way, all the powerful sea animals they detected during the voyage have been frightened away by the thorny sea lions without waiting for their action, which is also due to the credit of Xiao Yang. Up to now, everyone on the ship, including those who had shot Xiao Yang for pills before, is full of awe for him. This awe is not only because the latter saved their lives, but also from the bottom of their hearts, the awe of a real strong man. By noon, the ship had come to the place of Panchi Island. Looking at the closer and closer island, all the people on the ship were happy. Even if they were really safe here, they no longer had to worry that the giant animals in the sea would launch a sudden attack on them. However, when the ship was close to the port of the island, the people near the port also found the ship rapidly approaching them in the sea. At the same time, they also found the thorny sea lion exposed on the sea. That's thorn sea lion. No, it's a sea animal. Damn it, those annoying guys haven't withdrawn yet. How can they even come here now? Be careful, everyone. It's a thorn sea lion. Inform the surrounding police team to support quickly. Xiao Yang and others haven't arrived yet, but the atmosphere at the port is already tense, shouting one after another, and people gathered rapidly towards the port. Before the thorn sea lion approached the shore, the strong people gathered on the island had already displayed their fighting skills and bombarded the latter. What's going on? What happened at the port? At the same time, on the deck of the ship, the people who noticed the violent energy fluctuations ahead immediately looked at the past. Naturally, the two 9-star fighting emperors were the first. Then, when the people saw the situation in front of them, everyone's face changed immediately. They were only happy, but they almost forgot that there was a big guy, the thorn sea lion, in front of them. Now the people on the island must have regarded their ship as an empty ship. They thought it was the cover that the thorn sea lion found for themselves, but they attacked them directly. This is trouble. In the face of the overwhelming bombardment, the thorns and sea lions in the sea can't watch helplessly. Immediately, the huge body pours forward, and the startling angry wave sweeps forward. In a twinkling of an eye, it turns into a water wall hundreds of feet high, successfully blocking the frontal attacks, and the remaining strength continues to sweep forward without reducing its prestige. Finally, all the ports set up on the shore were destroyed. What's the matter? Why is the thorn sea lion angry? Suddenly, Xiao Yang, who had been sitting and practicing in the room, didn't know when he had appeared on his roof. He frowned and looked at the large waves that had destroyed the port in front. Xiao Yang was full of doubts. He has communicated with this group. He will pay for 2 fourth-order pills and let this guy send them here. Because of him, it is reasonable that the thorn sea lion should no longer take the initiative to attack humans. But what's the situation now? I've seen Elder Xiao Yang. Seeing Xiao Yang appear, the people on board saluted Xiao Yang respectfully. Although the people in front of them were young, they didn't feel anything wrong when they bowed. The so-called forerunner is the teacher. Now Xiao Yang also has the strength to let them call their predecessors. He nodded lightly, and then the two 9-star fighting emperors quickly said what happened in front of them. Oh, Panchi Island, that is to say, have we reached our destination? He whispered softly. Then Xiao Yang frowned again and turned his eyes to the front. The strong men on the island wanted to attack the thorn sea lion again. At this time, the latter was ready to send them another blow to the sea roar. Whoosh! Just as the thorn sea lion was preparing to attack, Xiao Yang suddenly came to its head, stomped the soles of his feet, and the movement of the giant beast under his feet also stopped. At the same time, the fighting skills bombarded by raindrops above the sky did not stop at all, and still fell hard against Xiao Yang and the thorn sea lion below with frightening destructive power. Hum! With a cold hum, Xiao Yang's right arm shouted, the light in his palm flashed, and the huge Xian heavy ruler immediately fell into his hand, covered with different fire and filled with fighting spirit. Then, at the moment when those fighting skills fell, the Xian heavy ruler swept across Xiao Yang's face. Then, a startling Sen white ruler came out with only one shot, that is to destroy all the countless fighting skills. Boom! The earth-shaking explosion spread between heaven and earth. The fighting skills of all the strong fighters before the port were swept by Xiao Yang. Then, before they shot again, Xiao Yang's body appeared on Panshi Island like a ghost. Waving the giant ruler in his hand, the invisible air was instantly crushed to form an air shell, which burst out and shocked the earth below. Then, the eyes of the strong at the port were attracted by this amazing blow, and then fell on the man in black in the air. Now, stop. Xiao Yang's figure stood in the air, and the dignified shouts gathered the eyes of the people below. They were surprised. They didn't expect that the people in front of them, as human beings, would stop them from shooting at the Thorn Sea Lion. Why? At this time, the Thorn Sea Lion also pulled the boat and docked it on the shore. Then, a Taoist shadow jumped down from the boat and appeared in front of everyone on the island. What's going on? The people who saw this scene were immediately surprised. How come the ship behind the Thorn Sea Lion is not an empty ship, but there are still people on it, and it is very safe to see them? Just when everyone on the island was surprised, several figures in the crowd recognized the two 9-star fighting emperors who had just fallen from the ship at the moment. Deacon Chen, Deacon Ju, how could it be you? Shouldn't your ship arrive in a month and a half? How could you appear on this ship? The four figures quickly flashed forward and arched their hands at the two 9-star Dipper emperors. Then they asked in surprise. Together with some eyes in the crowd behind, they were also attracted by their words. Seeing this person, the two 9-star fighting emperors immediately recognized him. These four people were the people in Longzifang. Then, they smiled and told the four people what had happened before and why they came here so soon. Of course, their words didn't mean to hide anything. Therefore, Xiao Yang easily subdued the Thorn Sea Lion, and let it as labor. It fell into the ears of the rear crowd word for word. Suddenly, this speech caused an uproar in the crowd. Countless shocked eyes fell on Xiao Yang. The cultivation of this Thorn Sea Lion has at least the middle of the 9-star fight emperor. However, even so, it was easily subdued by the black-robed youth in front of us. It can be seen how powerful the cultivation of the latter is. When the public saw his young face, there was a storm in the hearts of the people present, and the expression on his face was also stunned. Without the personal explanation of the two deacons of Longzifang and the Thorn Sea Lion they saw with their own eyes today, I'm afraid everyone present can't believe that this thin young man in black can burst out such powerful energy in his body. When the passengers who flew down from the boat behind Xiao Yang saw the expression on the faces of these people in front of them, they couldn't help but show a mocking and proud smile. Maybe it was because their faces had shown such an expression, or maybe it was because they saw it with their own eyes. When these people were looking at the people on the shore, there's always a look in your eyes like looking at a hick. As for the inexplicable pride, I should be glad that I was lucky enough to enjoy the process of sea animals pulling ships. After all, as far as they know, although they dare not say no, people at their stage are never qualified to enjoy it. This trip to the North Sea alone is enough for them to remember for a long time. Ignoring the noisy crowd around, Xiao Yang flashed and came to the Thorn Sea Lion in the blink of an eye. Now their boat has arrived at their destination, and their promise with the latter should naturally be fulfilled. Although it was forced to let the Thorn Sea Lion pull the boat at that time, the beast was unwilling to completely submit to Xiao Yang's powerful pressure. Therefore, Xiao Yang reluctantly traded 2 fourth-order pills for the success of the trip. It has to be said that with the guidance of the Thorn Sea Lion, the trip really exceeded Xiao Yang's expectation. It can barely be regarded as value for money. In the latter's already impatient bursts of low roars, Xiao Yang turned his palm, and 2 round pills fell into his hand. With a wave of his backhand, he was swallowed by the big guy in front of him. Then, he chirped happily twice, his huge body sank slowly, and finally disappeared near Panshi Island. Seeing the big guy leave, Xiao Yang somehow touched his nose. Then he turned around and boarded Panshi Island surrounded by everyone. Surrounded by the crowd, Xiao Yang walked on the street leading to the center of Panshi Island. Because of the terrain of the whole island, the street showed a scene of 10,000 steps. At a glance, the winding steps were endless until the end of his sight. There was a magnificent building complex. At the same time, it was also the highest and most central area of Panshi Island. Surrounded by the crowd behind him, Xiao Yang couldn't help feeling helpless. A large group of people were like robbers rushing up the mountain from the foot of the mountain. Many street shops couldn't stand it and closed their doors one after another. Even the passers-by on the road were frightened and made way for this group of people. In this regard, Xiao Yan had to smile bitterly at the bottom of his heart and shake his head. Only then did he look at the 2 9-star fighting emperors who were still followed by him. Although the port of Longzifang is on the outside of the island, because of the special relationship of the island, the headquarters of Longzifang in Panshi Island is built on a high place, which enables Xiao Yang to go along with it. Do you know the specific location of Beihai University in Beihai? Hearing the speech, they couldn't help picking their eyebrows. They seemed to be surprised at this, but immediately looked respectfully at Xiao Yang. After a little thought, they arched their hands and said with a smile, "Elder, are you going to Beihai University?" Xiao Yang nodded, and the man in front of him spoke again. "It seems that you are not familiar with Beihai University. How about telling you about Beihai University before you let your younger generation tell you the specific location of Beihai University?" As soon as he said this, Xiao Yang frowned. Listening to each other's tone, he seemed to be very familiar with Beihai University. Even if he couldn't help asking, "Did you two come out of Beihai College?" "Hihi, I'm joking. I don't have the ability to get into it." Hearing Xiao Yang's words, they immediately shook their heads and sighed. From their eyes, it can be seen that even they have a deep longing for Beihai University. After a bitter smile, they cleaned up their emotions, raised their eyes, looked at Xiao Yang, smiled and asked, "Have you ever heard of the 3 giants in the North Sea?" "The big 3 in the North Sea, what's that?" Hearing the words from the people in front of him, Xiao Yang couldn't help frowning, and his face showed doubt. He first entered the North Sea, but he was very strange to everything in the North Sea. He didn't know any other forces except Beihai College. Seeing this look on Xiao Yang's face, the 2 people around him were also helpless to smile. They came to this huge Beihai together with the former. They didn't know any other forces except Beihai College. Senior, the so-called 3 giants in the North Sea are the most powerful tripartite forces in the North Sea, and Beihai University is one of them. As soon as he said this, Xiao Yang immediately raised his eyebrows. Unexpectedly, Beihai University could have such a deterrent and become one of the 3 forces in Beihai. However, on second thought, Xiao Yang was relieved. Beihai College was founded by Haimo Chen, and his accomplishments are probably comparable to Guyo. Looking at the whole northern region, I'm afraid no one can rival him and deceive the 3 forces. In addition to Beihai College, the other 2 giants are the real overlord in the North Sea and the 2 oldest warcraft groups in this ocean. The Sea Shark and the Sea Jiao. In front of these 2 giants, human power is not worth mentioning. The 2 warcraft groups divide the whole sea area into 2 parts, half controlled by the Sea Shark family and the other half controlled by the Sea Jiao family, and their scope just reaches the area of Panshi Island. Therefore, there will be no people of these 2 groups in the sea area when we came. They only do so to maintain part of the balance in the sea, otherwise, once their power expands endlessly, there will be no other warcraft in the whole ocean except these 2 warcraft groups. However, Beihai College is at the junction of the spheres of influence of these 2 warcraft groups. It will take another month to reach Beihai College from Panshi Island where we are now. At this point, Deacon Chen and Deacon Ju couldn't help but pause and apologize to Xiao Yang. Because the sea area is more dangerous later, we Longzifang will not send any ships into the deep sea. Please forgive me for this. He waved his hand gently, and Xiao Yang lifted the 2 stooped people up between his sleeves and said with a smile, "Your responsibility is here. There's nothing to apologize for. Besides, I thank you for telling me this. The next voyage will be completed by myself. There are many strong people in the 2 warcraft groups, and even a few strong people in the source environment. You should be very careful in your next trip, Elder. Thank you for telling me." He arched his hands. After Xiao Yang nodded his thanks to the 2 people, Deacon Chen took out a scroll from his ring, which is also a detailed map of the North Sea. After receiving the map, Xiao Yang included it in the ring before he could see more. Looking back and looking forward, he found that they had unconsciously reached the height of Panshi Island. From the position at the moment, you can overlook more than half of Panshi Island at a glance, and even look back at the huge sea area when they came. The endless sea made Xiao Yang sigh in his heart. Just now, Qian and Tuesday said that the sea area in front of him is the survival place for other warcraft in the sea left by the two warcraft groups. Therefore, we can imagine what huge marine resources the two warcraft groups occupy. And all this, after all, is still because of the gap in strength between them. Nevertheless, if we think about it from another angle, we will find that although the two warcraft groups can be called hegemonic, they at least leave enough sea areas for other creatures in the ocean to survive. In other words, if it is human beings, when a group continues to expand endlessly, how can they leave opportunities for other forces to grow wantonly? Dang, dang, dang. However, at this time, a sudden rush of bells came from the highest part of Panshi Island. It is not difficult to hear the sense of urgency and urgency. I think something must have happened on the island. What's the matter? What does that bell mean? With a frown, Xiao Yang couldn't help asking. Almost at the same time, all the people behind him, and even all the people on the whole island, changed their faces. All the strong people who had cultivated themselves above the fighting emperor, all appeared in the sky, but in the twinkling of an eye, the sky over the whole Panshi Island was shrouded by countless figures. No, it's the snakes. The deacon Qian beside him quickly explained to Xiao Yang. The so-called snake group is actually equivalent to a beast tide in a sense. This beast tide is formed by the strong of the Sea Jiao family. All the cultivation of the Sea Jiao family participating in the beast tide are above the fighting emperor, and their strength is extremely strong. The significance of the existence of this animal tide is a tradition within the Haijiao family, which is to select real soldiers from countless Haijiao families, so as to join a special force within the Haijiao family to protect the Haijiao family. The first condition for selecting this kind of soldiers is to kill 10 strong fighters at the level of fighting emperor. In ancient times, such selection was usually only participated in within their own ethnic groups, and the battlefield was also this Panshi Island. However, because of human intervention, Panshi Island no longer belongs to them. Therefore, the rules for selecting soldiers have changed slightly, from the original ethnic group to the strong human beings. The battlefield has still not changed. The Sea Jiaos who participate in this selection usually exist at the bottom of the family and have a low status. Their purpose of participating in the selection is to change their position in the foot. Moreover, due to the limited number of soldiers selected, these guys are often very cruel. From the beginning, they will choose to fight in the craziest way in order to complete the selection qualification as quickly as possible. Although this process is likely to take their own lives, they are still very enthusiastic. Because these guys clearly understand that if they can't complete the selection, they will always be able to survive at the bottom of the ethnic group. The division of status makes them pay special attention to their identity. In order to make themselves sit on people, even if they fight their own lives. This video will end here.